Hello, myself Sunil Ramakrishna, and this is basically 141th number part. And this is basically formula part ongoing. That is basically the formulas of the project management plan. That is PM, that is AC, EV, CPI, SPI. So these all are basically formulas. But before this, you should know this all the thing which we are basically discussing, and that is basically we are discussing on. This is basically 141th number part of the formula word, that is basically formula. So here basically we were discussing about that each and every parameters of each and every parameters, each and every attributes of the formulas that are basically directly connected with the hundreds of balance sheets. And balance sheet basically contains each and every user stories of each and every aspect. So one of the stories basically you can say employee story, basically you can say each and every employee basically working in the software industry, their story basically are counted in the formulas basically. For example, EV contains hundreds of balance sheet, right? So hundreds of balance sheet contains uh, employees user stories also. So yesterday basically we have discussed just yesterday basically we have discussed um, about one story, that is basically one person's Nasbandi and HIV/AIDS was given through the marriage, and he and then basically his head chakkar was also. Then the another story was head chakkar. So that two story basically also going to contain in this user story. So like this, there are assume that there are hmm, 10 lakh employees, 12 lakh employees, and 12 lakh employee basically has 12 more than 12 lakh user stories, like, right? So they have their family, their user story comes into picture. So this is basically one of the small attribute of the balance sheet, you can say. So in balance sheet, this all gets calculated. So whenever the AC gets added, so whenever the AC basically is getting added in the software, when the software is getting created, when the AC is getting added in the data of the actual cost, so that basically cost contains this one of the attribute data also. So like this, there are many attributes in the software industry, basically you can say, which on the base of the each and every attributes are created. So this is basically one of the small attributes, you can say, that is basically user story of the uh, employees. So user story can be negative and positive also. So both side it contains. So there are few user stories that like that the Bollywood industry says that we have done lots of marriage also, and the generation also basically they have two kids also. So like this user stories are also there, they are having the good cars, they are basically traveling in cars also. So like these also stories are also there. So that is basically different story that are basically positive story. So that yesterday basically we had discussed one of yesterday story that was basically totally negative story. So there are two types of story basically you can say. One is negative and one is positive story. So negative stories basically are also calculated in the balance sheets, and positive stories are also calculated in the user stories of the each and every attributes basically you can say. So one of the attribute is uh, actual cost. So actual cost basically minimum balance sheet that basically actual cost contain, that is 100 minimum. So you can just imagine one balance sheet contains how many data. So 100 balance sheet basically of the each and every areas, how it might be containing. So how the actual cost might be calculating. So you basically can't. We just software industry basically that are software costing group, basically that are basically software accounting group. They just have to add a few parameters. That's all. That is basically AC equal to this much. That's all. But AC basically contains lots of things. That basically the real software companies like Infosys, TCS, IBM, then Genesis, Pune, BMC, and eClarex. Like this company basically adds this type of. They have the 100 balance sheet information also, and they have the user stories of each and every employees also. So the negative story basically yesterday I had told that basically that user story basically this company like Eclairx, IBM, TCS, they are not generating the user stories. They basically know. So they know basically the user stories of the each and every employees, and their accounting department basically calculates each and every user stories, and each and every actual cost are basically calculated. Here basically I just taking the example of actual cost. In real, there are EV is there, earned value is there, CPI is there, cost performance index is there, SPI is there, and many basically parameters are there. So here basically we are not going into so much of the, but formula basically when the formula topic is going to come, that time basically we are going to see each and every topics in detail, basically how the actual cost is basically containing hundreds of balance sheet, and how one paisa basically is getting calculated. I have taken one more example that if USA president comes to India, and whatever, for example, there are 1,000 crore dollar basically spent in the user in the American president visit. For example, America president visited India, and in India basically we went to Mumbai, he went to Bangalore, he went to Kolkata, he went to Hyderabad, he went to Vadodara, he went to Ahmedabad, he went to Kolkata, he went to uh, Kerala. Like this, basically, each and every, for example, this all cost basically contains. Um, so this all cost basically contains 1,000 crore. So like this 1,000 crore basically are getting added in the cost of the software. So that is basically this basically cost will never basically come into picture because it's a long term cost. So basically, whenever the costing gets calculated of the each and every software, there basically $1, some point 25 or point 22 or point 20 dollar basically gets calculated. So not $1 also. Basically, it's less than $1. So like this, the few set of groups of company basically they adds the parameter of the USA president expense into that, and then basically it gets added to it and added to each and every software company basically because they are purchasing the services of each and every area. They are purchasing the services of servers, they are purchasing the softwares, they are purchasing the operating system, they are purchasing the database, right? So like this basically each and every expenses are getting added. So like this, we have taken this example long before. Here basically we are talking about the balance sheet. Basically that is hundreds of balance sheet which is basically getting calculated. And here the main thing is the Bollywood industry. They are telling that we are the group basically who are creating negative stories and positive stories. So negative story basically we have already saw, we already discussed yesterday, and positive story basically we have just discussed was just now, that is basically the one person basically he purchased the car with the help of the salary, and he have two kids also because he got the marriage, and his generation also started. So like this, the positive stories are also there. So there are positive stories and negative stories. So basically, Bollywood industry says that it's not like that. The bad peoples are there in the Bollywood industry. Good people are also there. So this was the good people. So like this, there are many basically incidents also in the Bollywood industry. So Bollywood industry says that each and every software company, when it was created, that was created on the base of real story of the Bollywood. So real story means they were basically the person who basically got this information, the real story. He was confused basically. What is real story? So real story is basically you can say there are many peoples in the Bollywood industry who say who are basically so who are who have basically certain stories that how they got the how they become actor, how each and every models basically become the actress. So each and every area basically, each and every struggle, each and everything basically has some user stories, and that user story basically are converted into the software industry. So that are basically the softwares. Few user stories are very big, so they can't come into one software. So for that basically they have to create one company only. So like this, the small user stories are there. Small user story, the software gets creates. In big user stories, basically software company get creates. So we have many user stories. So like this, basically, this is also one of the data science. Basically, you can say one of the data science project. And data science project basically, yesterday also basically we have discussed one of the data science project, that is basically when the one Vadodara, basically in Vadodara, basically there was one pool. There is one pool. It's not. It's there basically. So there is one pool, and that got cracked. So due to that crack, basically the Bollywood person told that yeah, basically we know that from this area, from these foods, basically the crack has happened. So basically, the lots of people basically that are IIT people were also shocked. We also don't have this type of information. So like this, the IIT groups, the education industry was also shocked that how basically the Bollywood industry knows that. Uh, the software industry was also shocked. How basically Bollywood industry knows. We also don't have this type of data that this crack in the pool was happened due to these foods. And then basically the IIT person told that yeah, basically we required one data science project, basically that which food is more powerful. For example, you are creating one pool from these foods groups, then basically which foods groups are going might damage these pools. So this basically converted into one of the bigger one of the data science project, basically. So that basically that IIT professor basically told that yeah, basically we are basically going to create one project that is basically a data science project. And the data science project basically contains the data science project basically contains the data that is basically data of foods area, that is basically which food is more powerful. For example, you are eating one aloo ka paratha. So aloo ka paratha basically contains which are the ingredients that are basically potato, masalas, then maidas. A few people basically creates from rotis, atta. Then lots of vegetables are used, lots of masalas are used. Lots of people basically prefer oil. Lots of people don't prefer oil. Lots of people prefer butter. Lots of people prefer ghee. So like this, basically the aloo ka paratha gets creates. So from aloo ka paratha energy, aloo ka paratha is one food ingredient basically that is created by some group, basically you can say. So that is basically everybody knows the how many chefs are there in the India. So they have the each and every data, basically how they have created the each and every foods. So if any chefs basically creates new foods, that has to be verified 100 times, because this type of data basically might this type of data basically might create problem. So like this, the nowadays basically not nowadays, basically previously also basically each and every foods was getting verified. So 100 time verification happens, then only basically the foods gets into the market. So the chefs group basically have the each and every foods data, that also you can say. So data science project basically, um, who are basically into data science project collection, they basically might get the help from the chefs, basically you can say, who are in the top chefs basically in the market, in the India market. And mostly basically the real chefs basically never comes in front of the public. So they are in not in front of the public. So that also basically data science project manager, basically they are basically IIT professors. They have to search this also, that who are basically chefs, basically who are not in front of the public. So because they know basically that this type of problem might occur, that is basically the pool got cracked. And the reason was basically the pool was created on the base of this all foods energy. But the foods energy, basically the upper food energy was also there, basically that cracked that food. So, but why that crack happened? That was also was the one of the investigation. What was the reason? Each and everything is going to calculate it. Just see basically what are the things going to happen now. So like this, each and everything is called calculated. So like this, the formula basically one formula word basically has become to the very big level project basically we can say, because it contains hundreds of balance sheet, and that hundreds of balance sheet basically has to be calculated also. You can't calculate hundreds of balance sheet in the paper, it's very difficult to calculate, so that required basically one software also. So hundreds of balance sheet, you can just imagine to create one balance sheet only, one balance sheet, it requires more than 20 to 30,000 parameters. But it's hundreds of balance sheet, that also in one parameter, that is basically actual cost. So there are hundreds of parameters in the project management plan, which is created by the project management institute, that is basically in Pune, in Hinjawadi. Basically, they have the institute. They have basically taken each and every factors in this. They have basically taken each and every factors in this, each and every parameters basically you can say they have taken it, like the example I have taken that actual cost basically contains hundreds of balance sheets, so they have taken it. Otherwise basically project management, otherwise basically the software industry might be into big loss, basically not big loss, it's very very big loss. So if mostly they might have taken, because it's a project PMI basically is approved by the Indian government also and the US government also. So that is basically 100% they might have taken, because it's approved by the USA government. So USA government is basically the number one country in the world, and number one country basically you can say in the software industry also. So like this is about the formula word, and this is basically 141th number, 141th number, and 142 basically we are going to discuss a little bit more about the formula word and the balance sheets, hundreds of balance sheets, and how basically Bollywood group is telling that we have basically control of each and every user stories of the software industry, and how there are negative and positive user stories of the software industry which is controlled by the Bollywood groups.